All right, guys, bang, bang. I've got Hong here with me. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's jump into your background. Kind of give us an overview of what you did before you got to OKCoin.
Sure, yeah. Look, I'm not an early adopter like many of your other previous interviewees are when it comes to Bitcoin. Some of them probably got into Bitcoin in early 2011, 12, 13. I got it a bit late, although I heard about it in 2013 or 12. I didn't really, quote unquote, convert until later in 2016. But before I talk about that, I'd like to talk a little bit about my personal background as well, just to share how I've grown up and how that kind of shaped up my perspectives and why I ultimately converted. So I was actually born in China. I grew up in China, in the southern part of China, a small town close to Shanghai. And I was born in the year when the free market concept was first introduced into China in 1979. Anyone who was familiar with recent history of China would probably know that that was the year when Deng Xiaoping basically opened up the door and say, okay, it's not about whether it's a planned economy, a communist or capitalist. It's about how we can help our people to live better, right? In that case, whether it's a black cat or a white cat, as long as the cat catches the mouse, it's good cat. So that was the year when actually you started to see market elements in a fully planned, centrally planned economy. And that was when I was born. So I actually had the luxury, like everyone else in my generation, to actually experience that transition of economy, a huge economy from 100% centrally planned fashion into a hybrid model. And I also had the luxury to experience what it was like when it's all centrally planned. Because initially when that policy was introduced, you still had a lot of social stigma attached to being an entrepreneur. Right now we talk about entrepreneur like it's great, right? You have entrepreneurial spirit. That's all you really want to strive for. Everyone is becoming an entrepreneur. But back then, if you became an entrepreneur, it's a social stigma. It means that you probably are not good enough on your previous position. You're a loser. So there was a huge mentality shift and also a huge release of productivity when free market was introduced, and individuals are given that freedom to choose, to make decision on what they want to work on, what they think are fruitful, and actually execute it. And you see a huge creativity in that sense. And that's also why China has been able to enjoy a lot of huge growth, exponential growth over the last 40 years. It's all because of free market, the introduction of free market. And when we see hurdles of that recently, there's some growth slowdown from that perspective. There was also a lot of debate on whether that's because you kind of get to in certain areas where it's really hard to further bring that market concept into certain areas of either society or economy. So that was the larger background of where how I grew up. I had that kind of a personal firsthand experience of how free market is powerful. And then I went to Beijing for my university, for my college education, and spent a couple of years there, actually 9 years in Beijing. I went to Peking University, study economics and language. In 2006, I decided to apply for an MBA. As you know, MBA stands for something that you can, basically after MBA, you can do anything you want, kind of a myth. I decided to do that because I want to be more integrated into that market force. I think that economy and capital market is really what's really driving the innovation in the world. And U.S. has the most sophisticated capital markets and has a lot of innovation going on in Silicon Valley that was funded by the capital, free capital structure. So, my dream was kind of go to that and be part of it. So back then I had different offers, including Chicago and Wharton and Columbia. I ultimately went to Chicago because, again, Chicago was a school where there are multiple professors having got Nobel Prizes for economics, right? Milton Friedman, Eugene Fama, Stigler, and most recently Taylor for his behavior economics. And so, I went there. I spent 2 years there and graduated in 2008. It was a fantastic time to graduate from business school. But I was lucky because I had an offer back then in before 2008 crisis hit. All the LBO hit an all-time high, and people are all, this is a new era. Nothing we have experienced before is going to be expected this time. So that was that kind of narrative. So I got an offer from Goldman. I went to join Goldman in investment banking division. So I had another choice back then with Goldman, either joining financial institutions group, FIG, or TMT for the investment banking division. And I made the decision to go to financial institutions again because I feel like, money is the invisible hand. That's what I've learned from my business school, from my finance education. Money is the invisible hand. The free market, there's a lot of good things happening, but everyone, the whole world is built on incentives, right? Every one of us, we act on incentives. And a lot of those incentives, some of those incentives are probably not monetary. Many of them are. And the monetary system, the financial system actually organizes and allocate resources to the way that the society needs, either appropriately or inappropriately. So I think, TMT sounds very interesting. But I really want to understand what's going on in the financial institutions, in the capital markets, and probably FIG is the right place to go. So I ended up in FIG and spent 8 years there, more than 8 years with FIG. And now thinking back, 2008, joining FIG was not too bad a choice because 2008 was a year when even before I joined full-time, everything's starting to crumble down. And after I joined, I'm sitting there, looking around and finding my associate in the first class actually they got moved around because of the crisis. Some of them even were moved into back office support because of that. But FIG was kept busy throughout that year because only banks and insurance companies, particularly banks who actually need money, so they are doing a lot of work, right? Recapitalize, getting TARP, raising blind pool, all sorts of stuff. So luckily I was there in the middle of it, seeing all the drama happening, seeing all the TARP being handed out, working on blind pools, stuff like that. It was kind of interesting because I was back then still kind of in the learning mode. I was, had no idea what's going on. I had no idea how banks operate, how insurance companies operate, how asset managers operated. So I was really kind of duck my head down and really learn and hope that I didn't get fired just because of the market volatility. So I, survived. Ended up working across different subsectors within FIG, serving all kind of customers for their needs for IPO, for M&A, spin-off, refi, hybrid, all kinds of stuff. Kind of interesting. But there are also some aha moments throughout that process. One of it, which is, when you're sitting in the middle of the financial crisis, you see all kinds of things going on. I was working with a client raising capital. And then, that situation, I work with investors, private equity investors, trying to blind pool together and buy those bad assets. But they actually were able to secure government sponsorship, basically government guarantee that, up certain loss level, government will eat it with taxpayer money. The rest of it, PE can take and reallocate assets and put out a quote unquote good bank out there. So actually it turns out that investing in those bad assets in 2009, 10, and 11 were actually one of the best investment time and investment activity that a financial focused PE or any type of PE investors can actually hope for. So that got me thinking, right? Because initially the whole crisis, why it happened, there was huge misallocation of resources, huge upside down for the general public. And I was even worried if I went to a social event, I didn't really want to talk about being at Goldman because, in 2008, you don't really want to be part of the Goldman story. But seriously, thinking about that, got me to think about the resource allocation, what went wrong. And also coming out of that financial crisis, people who don't have enough financial resources ended up having less financial resources because you don't really get the leverage to invest in one of those worst periods. Only those with a lot of financial resource, excess financial capital, they have the luxury to invest and actually get more return out of it. So that got me to start thinking about what's going on and what was wrong. And then, because I also have different experience working with banks and insurance companies versus with fintech companies, I also got to see how the different dynamics. When you work with fintech companies, the mindset is very different. Trying to look at the status quo and think about what we can change to really benefit the larger generation, larger population. While the traditional financial industry is more about the status quo, right? The business model is very straightforward. It's about capital allocation based on whatever the incentives are depend on the current system setup. So that got me to think about what I really want to do. When I think about what you are doing in the capital markets, there is a big portion of resource allocation to support the high growth, technology firms who are driving growth through innovation. There are also a big portion of resource allocation or asset reallocation. People pursue M&As, spin-offs. A lot of those are capital markets maneuvers that reallocate resources. But does it really create extra value? And also, when you look at the price market movement in U.S. market or even in global market, take China, for example, you see periods of asset bubbles. And when those prices really deviate from fundamentals, fundamental doesn't really matter anymore. And at some point that music stops. And you start to think why that actually deviate from the fundamentals, what's going on? Because we all think about free market believers say, okay, the price is the indicator of the supply and demand, right? We don't have to know, we don't need a central planner who know everything going on. Every one of us just look at the price and price will tell us what I should do, how I should allocate resources. So there must be something wrong with that price indicator that lead to that large scale misallocation of the social resources. So fast track to 2016, I decided to shift because I wanted to actually be on the investment side, get closer to the innovation side, going through growth equity investment, looking at tech companies, fintech companies. So I was asked by a serial entrepreneur in China. He was a very famous and legendary one to join him and help him do with basically growth investment. So that was in late 2016. And it was because of that shift that I got to know Star, who was the founder of OKCoin. He started OKCoin in 2013 as a RMB crypto trading platform, primarily focused on Chinese market back then. So between 13 and 16, it's all about Chinese customers trading in and out of crypto with RMB. So I got to know about him and got to know him and his and the team, and we seriously started to talk about investment. I was actually leading the Series B investment back then. So we were talking about that, and that was the time when I actually started to look at Bitcoin in all seriousness. I heard about Bitcoin actually in 2012. One of my MDs, a very senior lady, a female MD, actually talked to us about Bitcoin in a random meeting. We were talking about something else, and then she was like, "You know what? Have you heard about Bitcoin? It's actually a very interesting thesis, and the value has been going up." It just slipped my mind. If I have time machine to go back, I will probably change that. But unluckily, there was no time machine. So in 2016, end of 2016 was really when I started to really seriously look at Bitcoin. And honestly, back then in 16, OKCoin was doing really good. Was number one trading platform in China. So it has a lot of user, has a lot of activity, a lot of volume, and a lot of cash flow. But that was not the reason why I ended up investing in them. Because when I look at Bitcoin and really debate on what really it offers. Like if there was something that I learned from my investment banking experience, it was that really there are a lot of noises in the market. The market can deviate from the fundamentals, but long term, it's about the fundamentals. So give it some time, and the fundamentals will catch up. So I was asking myself, are there any fundamentals in this, or is it just all price speculation that will fade at some point? And I was looking at Bitcoin, and I realized that actually this is something I've never seen before. It's very new because it really challenged a lot of the assumptions I had, right? Some of the assumptions, like, for example, monetary system. I came to this US because I believe in free market. I think this is the center of free market. I went to Chicago because there's a lot of economists talking about free market and kind of how you should not tax. You should, do less tax and give that power to people. But in the traditional economics and the way that the central banking was talking about policies, there was never a question about whether monetary system, number one, should or should not be created or run by government. And number two, there's never a question about the assumption whether inflation is a given. We always talk about the base monetary policies that you need to have some, 2% inflation maybe to encourage spending, to produce growth. That was taken as a given. So those are actually powerful moments of kind of realization, and say, okay, actually, you know what? That probably explains why the price signals in the market was not working as well, because you've got monetary policy that actually intentionally inflates, and it's really hard to bifurcate that from what's really going on. And what we are seeing this year exactly show point that again. It's a replay of 2008, because arguably what happened in 2008 was a aftermath of what Greenspan has been doing with monetary policy in 2000. So I think that was a big aha moment, and that was when I was like, okay, you know what, there's a lot of uncertainty related to this, because when it comes to monetary system, it's not just technology innovation. It's actually, there's a lot of invested interest in this, and invested interest not only by individuals but also by various sovereign governments. Who knows what will happen? Something happened with China policy in 2017 related to crypto, which kind of speak to the volatility of this long term. But fundamentally, I think it shows that it's possible to rebuild a sound monetary policy that is responsible, that actually rewards the savers, and rewards those who have longer term time preference. And it shows, if you look at China versus U.S. Economy, right? China has a much higher saving rate versus U.S. has a much higher leverage. We all tout about leverage in the capital markets. However, if you look at the growth rate, when you have a higher saving rate in the society, you actually have more capacity to invest for longer term benefit. So I think that is really powerful. And the other powerful thing in Bitcoin that I see was not just related to monetary policy. It was also because it's part of it is technology. That blockchain concept that very simply designed, and you can actually use those simple things to effect large scale interpersonal collaboration and enable value transition one-on-one. But it's also because the way it is set up, it actually allows it use the combination of technology and incentive system to allow not devilize people who pursue their own individual interest. Because I think human beings are built to pursue their own incentive. It's just part of us. It's just inhuman to ask everyone to act in everyone else's benefit. Some of us can do that, but it's unnatural to ask everyone to do it. So when you have a system that actually reward individuals who just pursue their own benefit, and as a result of that, actually build the ecosystem and build the whole platform, for everyone's benefit, I think that's marvelous. I've never seen that before. So that was, again, those are things that kind of come together and, made my decision. I made my decision to invest in OKCoin.
So let me ask this question. When you made that decision, what were kind of the driving factors, right? So it's kind of like you bought into the idea of Bitcoin, you found that interesting, you saw value there, but why OKCoin specifically?
Yeah, I think if I believe in a potential of that future, it is a future where there is a combination of blockchain technology and incentive setup that build beyond Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the monetary layer, and the technology, even as it stands right now, is still not there. But once the technology gets to the next level or the level beyond it, I think we would be able to see a revolution even beyond that monetary system, right? In the financial system, as we kind of are seeing right now in DeFi, but it's still very early stage. It still doesn't allow large scale, high efficiency transactions. But even beyond that, I think the really what matters is that real use cases like, ICO in 2017, there was a lot of white paper floating around that doesn't really have the substance to support it. But I think the direction it was heading for was right. We just didn't have the technology to really support and make it happen. But I believe in a world where, ultimately different parts of our economy right now, which was run on internet version right now and through centralized platform, hopefully that can be realized in a more decentralized fashion through token. So it would be a combination of that underlying protocol development and incentive system built into it. And to be able to have that type of crypto world taking effect and function smoothly, you actually have to have a price discovery system for people to really see the value of their crypto, whatever that crypto asset is for, right? Maybe peg it against Bitcoin in the future, but you have to have that price discovery system. So my thinking is, okay, this is definitely a long-term ride, but no matter what, you'll need a marketplace to discover price, meaning a trading exchange. And OKCoin seems to be in a good position back then. And that's the place to go. So that was really why I made that decision. Yes, there was a lot of speculation, but without speculation, without price increase, it would be hard to attract new users into the space. So it's just a starting point. Yeah.
Absolutely. Makes complete sense. Talk a little bit about OKCoin today. You guys are based in the United States and kind of have a whole bunch of different features. Like when you describe the business and the products to somebody, just give us an overview of what does that really entail?
Yeah. So OKCoin today, we actually went through a lot of transitions. As I mentioned, back in 2016, 15, 16, 17, we were all Chinese market. And the only trading pair we had back then was just Chinese yuan versus crypto. In 17, we went through a transition because of the Chinese government shutting it down informally and not allowing that fiat crypto trade. So we actually decided to change our strategy and come to the US and other jurisdictions where there is a clear regulatory framework where we can actually build out that fiat on-ramp, because we believe that in the future, it's probably all 100% crypto. Who knows? That's such a remote future. In more realistic way, it's probably a parallel, right? A parallel world where you have crypto, but you also have traditional fiat stuff. So we need a bridge between the two. We need to give people easy access into crypto or out of crypto. And that's what we are trying to do at OKCoin, to provide that easy on-ramp, off-ramp access to crypto and also drive adoption. I think crypto, even today, with all the excitement that we are seeing in DeFi over the last 3 months, it's still a very small population thing. It's very hard for people general public to grasp the concept of private key and access and set up node. Not even everyone within crypto can actually do that. So I think there's still a high bar to cross, but getting more people to really understand, to start off, to understand what Bitcoin is about, and see if they actually agree with the fundamental principles that Bitcoin is proposing. And then maybe going beyond that, what are the other potential protocols and crypto assets that they identify with, either want to invest in or utilize in the future. I think that's really what we think about ourselves. Our mission is kind of on that adoption direction. Want to make it easy for the general public to do that. That's why, for now, we have been in building mode because to be that bridge, like it or not, you have to be compliant and getting licenses in US in the right way takes time. So we're taking time to do that over the last 3 years. And over the last year, we've been also, with license application kind of more than halfway done. We started to also invest in areas where, product and marketing growth and kind of try to build that infrastructure and get some of the good products out there to serve markets. We have been updating our current product as is to make it easy, adding instant deposit and making it easy flow. But there is a lot more that we want to do with our product. So we'll continue to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I read somewhere, and something I found very interesting is that you're actually helping to fund Bitcoin development as well. Talk a little bit about where did that come from, and kind of what's the thought process behind it? Sounds like you guys are basically have money going out, but not necessarily directly money coming back in, and are more just supporting developers building on Bitcoin.
Yes, yeah. I think that circles back to how we see Bitcoin as part of the crypto world, and also my experience from Goldman. Again, going back to the fact that when we look at what's going on out there, either in traditional space or in crypto, we went through the ICO process, right? The bump and burst, and we are right now in a DeFi wave. There's a lot of debate on whether this DeFi is the same with ICO or it's different, but coming down to, I think, what really matters for crypto to be long-term successful and actually deliver what we believe in the first place is about the fundamentals. Are we building the protocol in the right way? And again, when I think about crypto, there are two elements. One is that underlying protocol level, and the other is the incentive that's built into it. Obviously, Bitcoin is already is the most mature crypto asset in crypto, and the way the incentive system is built is very clear, very simple, and it's built in the sense that it was meant to be, right? Being that digital gold, being that kind of monetary layer. But there's a lot of stuff that need to be done to the protocol to make sure that it actually is secured. It protects privacy. It can scale to the best it can. So I think there's a lot of work that need to be done there. And, we, as an exchange, we don't necessarily get direct benefit from sponsoring those developers, but we think it's important for us to do that because Bitcoin is the fundamental layer of our industry. So if anything bad happens to it, we are all gone. And we would like to be able to sponsor the continuous development. And we don't think we are the only one, right? And it's good that we are not the only one, and we don't want to be the only one, and we don't want our form of donation to be the only form of donation. I think it's actually good to have different parties jumping in. Actually, after our efforts, we also see a lot of our pals in the exchange industry to jump in and also provide support, which is great, which is what we would love to see. And we started with Bitcoin again, is because it is one of the oldest developer community. It doesn't really have a central sponsoring entity, right? And it's very much community driven. It's unlike Ethereum, for example. There's a lot of different organizations sponsoring it. Bitcoin is really out there on its own, and I think it takes efforts from every one of us to support its continuous growth. So that's really why, and we'll continue to do it. But ultimately, I think it's really kind of investing in that protocol, and also see to whatever extent we can try to be that bridge to between developer community, which is a more fundamental community, and the more niche is also a more specialized community, to the general investor and general public. Help people understand what's going on there, why they're working on what they're working on, why it matters to us, things like that. We also learn a lot in that process as well, and we'll continue to do that.
How do you see the kind of landscape of exchanges, both in the U.S. and internationally, kind of unfolding? Right, that there's kind of a whole host of different exchanges. They all have different strategies. You guys have kind of a very unique, type strategy. You spend a lot of time building recently. How do you think of like differentiation and kind of like where you want to kind of find success? Like, what is that thing that you guys say, hey, we want to be known for X?
I don't want to speak for other exchanges. I think, again, as you mentioned, there are a lot of players out there. Some are around longer, some are around shorter. Obviously, most recently we have Uniswap, which is a totally different animal, and we're very happy to see them grow and the volume outpacing Coinbase. But again, from our perspective, our focus is really on promoting adoption, and we want to do whatever we can to do that. And that means that we have to focus our resources on that. Make it simple, make it easy for people to get in and get out. Does that mean it has to be centralized exchange or whatever format that we want to take? Maybe, but it can also be connecting to the DeFi world in some sense. So we're exploring, we're doing that internal debate, and some of it will translate into product, and some of it probably will not after internal discussion. But hopefully, we're all moving in that direction, and which is we want to help promote adoption, help more people come in and understand and embrace it in whatever format. Because not all some of us are diehard Bitcoin holders. We just buy and hold. We don't trade. Some of our daily traders, right, coming in the day out, Bitcoin or altcoin, doesn't matter. And then there's some other people who are not really familiar with it, and they're still debating what it would be and how they should manage it. I think from our perspective, and me as a kind of a long-term Wall Street practitioner, I think everyone should take a very responsible approach, not diving before you actually have some idea of what's going on, and also particularly if you don't know what's going on, you don't have full conviction, don't all in, just put a small amount into it and then see how it goes. That's probably, or just get 1 Bitcoin for your children and just leave it there.
So one of the interesting things to me is like part of the Bitcoin narrative of store of value is to hold Bitcoin, right? Obviously exchanges want as much trading as possible because that's how they make money. How do you kind of think through the balance between maybe that Bitcoin ethos of holding and store of value with kind of the business goals of lots of transactions, right? Like, that's a very kind of interesting thing, and I think you guys have a unique perspective on.
Yeah, again, from a business, from personal perspective, I obviously have my personal preference when it comes to hold versus trade. And I respect that for everyone. I think everyone has that and should make that choice. And that's also what will make it successful for Bitcoin long term. Like if all people are trading and not holding, then it's problematic because you all end up having speculations. But if no one is trading, everyone is holding, then there's no liquidity and there's no price fluctuation and no interest spike from the non-crypto community. So I think it's actually healthy to have both. And as an exchange, from a business perspective, we're not going to dictate on whether you should hold or whether you should trade. It's all individual choice. Again, back to how I grew up, I really believe in that. Empowering individuals. I think if you look at the evolution of the internet, right, over the last 10 or 20 years, last 20 years in US, last 10 years in China, I think there's a very clear trend of democratization of everything, starting from message, starting from e-commerce trading, buying and sell, and then gradually getting into media, more sensitive areas of media. But the recent TikTok was making a big splash here. one of the big reason I actually invested in TikTok when I was doing my growth investment, which, hopefully it looks like it's a good one. But one of the reasons that they were successful is because it was really giving that right to users. It's all user-generated content. It's not that platform trying to centrally produce it. It's whatever user want to do. You produce it, and you see how much interest you're generating locally. So I think that democratization is very powerful. And what we are doing in crypto is, I think, is in line with that. The ultimate thing is really to empower individuals, right? And crypto, hopefully, with the right incentives, and we do need, as an industry, we do need more technology advancement, more advancement in the protocol level to be able to host more use cases, real use cases. And to be honest, I spent all my professional life in financial institutions, and I love what's going on with DeFi. But I think ultimately what will make us successful as an industry for crypto is we have to see more use cases outside financial industry. That's when things will really take off. And look forward to that.
Absolutely. And so when you think about that future world where, things have taken off, go out maybe 10 or 20 years, like paint a picture of what is the kind of holy grail situation, or kind of where are we headed, if you will?
10 years, I don't know what happens in 10 years. We'll see. But 10 years is a long long horizon. If we think about what happens in 10 years, over the last 10 years, in US, in China, things have totally turned upside down. But maybe crypto will bring even more drastic changes to us. Maybe not. There are a lot of hurdles to that too, right? There's the advancement at the protocol level. There's regulatory framework, how that will shake out, because even in the internet space, or where you see more innovations that actually benefit society, benefit people, is when actually regulators taking a seat back and see what's going on before jumping in and say this is not right, and that's not right. You actually give them some space to experiment and see what works versus what doesn't work. So it's hard to tell. I'm generally positive, but it's hard to. there are some pieces of it that's kind of hard to predict as well. So I would say that long term I'm very positive, but there is natural volatility because of that I think we should expect and we should embrace as an industry and work through it. Ideally, in a ideal situation, I think we would. I don't know if that happens in 10 years or so, but I think in an ideal situation, there's no company format. There's probably no government format. It's all community, and each community based on each protocol with its own token is almost like a country that we have right now. But again, that's a I don't know if it's a remote reality. We'll see.
Absolutely. And then what about OKCoin 10 or 20 years from now? Like, what is that kind of North Star, or where are you driving the organization and want to see it get over the next kind of decade or so?
Again, I don't know. 10 years, it's really hard to tell. Right now, what we currently have is, I think the way we see the evolution is that there is a long period of transition time, or a period where the two worlds ran in parallel, right? There may be situations where the two worlds collide. We'll put that possibility aside first, but there will be a long time where the two worlds coexist together. So we want to be, for OKCoin in its current form, we want to be that connection point between the two. That the format of that connection point can change as the industry changes. We are, as you know, much better than anybody else. Our industry changes every minute, so it's hard to tell. Our internally, we look at things every 2 months and that's probably feeling still too long. So it's really hard to tell how things will look like 10 years. But I think that North Star of promoting adoption is going to be important for us to mobilize around.
Yeah, look, I think that just the perspective you have is it's so balanced. And I think this idea of like, hey, we're building a business, but we believe in the ethos of Bitcoin and a lot that's going on there and the willingness to support Bitcoin developers and kind of really be thoughtful about what you're building and kind of how you roll it out and stuff is it's pretty impressive to see. Before we wrap up, I ask everybody the same two questions, and then you'll get the opportunity to ask me one. The first one is, what is the most important book that you've ever read?
I like Foundation trilogy. Awesome.
Why do you like that?
I read it very early age, and I think it was eye-opening. It's a combination of sociology and the way they talk about psychohistory. On one side, it almost reflects what happened with Roman Empire, but on the other side, it shows the possibility that human society individually, it's very hard to predict. But if you look at it over a long enough horizon and a larger enough scale, you can probably see some patterns and use that to predict things. It's different from central bankers trying to predict monetary policy, I think. And there's a lot of interesting moments where you see small characters in the story actually shaping history, but not shaping history, changing it because it kind of diverted from that path. It still follows. So math matters, actually. There's some sacred rules embedded in that number game. So I think that's really interesting. I love it.
I love that answer. That's awesome. Aliens is the second question. Are you a believer or a non-believer?
I think it's unlikely that we are the only planet with life.
I thought you were going to say it's unlikely that aliens existed. I was going to be shocked, but okay. Unlikely that we are alone makes more sense.
It's unlikely. We just don't know where they are. Well, maybe they are, but we are not aware of it. Maybe we are in their program, whatever. So yes, I think it is. We just don't know. Yeah.
I tend to agree with you. And based on 2020, I started to think that maybe we are actually in a simulation, right?
Yeah.
It's like somebody is saying, hey, you guys dealt with that pandemic thing. Okay, here's a tornado. Here's a hurricane. Like, deal with murder hornets, right? They come with all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
You get to ask me one question to wrap up. What's the one question you have for me?
Look, you have talked to so many people. You said 400 podcasts. Everyone bring in different perspectives. Are there anything that surprise you that is kind of almost like a common theme that you're seeing again and again, despite kind of what kind of background they're coming from?
Yeah, I don't know if there's things necessarily that surprised me. I guess the biggest surprise, and this is somewhat of a joke, but there's only ever been two people who came on the podcast and said they believed in ghosts more than they believed in aliens. That was a little surprising. But in terms of like the actual content around like business and things, the things that are maybe less obvious are the really simple things. Right. So everyone who listens is always waiting for somebody to come on and have, you say, hey, if you want to build a successful exchange, here's the secret. Right. Or like, here's the magic bullet.
Oh, I wish I had the magic bullet.
Of course. Right. Because the operators understand there is no magic bullet, right? It's building a business, right? So you've got to build a product. You've got to make sure that it's what people want. You've got to scale it. You've got to market it. You've got to hire people. You've got to manage people. Like, it's all the blocking and tackling of building a company. And I think that that's probably the thing that it doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter what stage of the business, like the blocking and tackling of building and or funding companies is exactly what you think, right? It's hard work. And there is no magic bullet. There is no kind of, oh, Hong woke up this morning. She, typed in the secret code and now all of a sudden OKCoin is successful. Like as much as we want that,
platform.
yeah, as much as we want that to be the answer, that's just not how the world works. And so I think that that's probably the thing I've taken away the most is everyone, if they can kind of realize the people who came before me and have been successful did the same things that I have to do. And people who come after me are going to have to do the same things. There is no shortcut. I think it just focuses people like, okay, let's go do the work. Right. And so that would kind of be my answer.
That's very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Where can we send people to find either you on the internet or find out more about OKCoin?
Obviously I'm on Twitter. I'm not super active, to be honest, because I'm still focused on a lot of the internal stuff. But you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is hfangca. I've been using that for a long time. Obviously, we have our website. You can visit okcoin.com, and we also have our OKCoin Twitter as well. Please come and interact with us and give us your feedback.
Awesome. Well, listen, Hong, I really appreciate taking the time to do this. I know you're super busy, and I think people will really appreciate just hearing your perspective and kind of the vision that you have for not only the company, but also where all this is going. And again, it's really cool to kind of see the approach that you guys have taken in terms of funding Bitcoin development and kind of really taking the time to build stuff. I'm pretty impressed. So thank you so much for your time. We'll have to do it again in the future.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you, Pomp. Thank you for your time.